Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth. Yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back, Rebels, to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. I'm your host, Julian, here with my boy B. If you're tuning in for the first time, and as usual, we're gonna pick a topic to rebel. We're putting a little twist on it though this week. As you can see, this is a special week. Anytime we're here in person, I think it's pretty dope. Very unique opportunity. We also have a co-host with us, Frosty, off to the side. In essence of our holiday season. So, what's up?
All right, so we're gonna be talking about, like I said, it's gonna be a little different, right? We don't have like a typical,
Yeah,
I guess like a topic that
Right.
we're gonna go against, but this book, if you can see it, it's called The Little Book of Big Ethical Questions by Susan
Lataud.
Litaud, maybe.
Sorry if we butchered your name.
And then we're gonna just talk about ethics, and then just go back and forth, pick a topic. I think the topic itself is interesting, and I think even though we're not here to say this is wrong, this is right, but I think within the conversation there will definitely be rebelling topics that maybe does not align with the I guess societal norms. How it's depicted in today's culture in the United States.
Possibly, yeah. So it's a book, and before we get into it, I'll ask that you maybe kind of speak on the structure of the book. I haven't read the book.
Mhm.
B's read it, and from my understanding, it just poses a series of ethical questions, right? Maybe.
Yeah, so basically,
reference.
I mean, this entire book, there's 5 sections, and within those 5 sections, there's like 10 ethical questions regarding that section. And then author, obviously, it is like when I read the book, I do think it's a little biased towards the author's narrative, but we're not going to really read into it. We're going to take the question and kind of go back and forth. But she does give good talking points within, without the biases inside the text. So we won't reference it too much, but just to go back and forth on the title of the question. And
Sure, yeah, and uh, we love to promote conversation, and some topics could be more contentious or a little spicier than others, but I think this will be a great just point of conversation. Again, we usually pick a traditional stance on any topic, and go against why that narrative might be changing as time passes or generationally narratives change. But on this one, as B said, it's just kind of going to be us talking about different question topics. So I'm pretty excited.
yeah. All right. Here's the first question.
These are not pre-screened, by the way. These are just like open the book, pick a question, and we're gonna think about it on the spot. So it should be interesting.
All right. The first question is, should voting be mandatory? I mean, this topic, obviously, we're recording this still in 2024. It'll be out.
No, this one's gonna come out, I think, like January 6th.
Okay. So it would be 2025.
Yeah.
So we still have Biden as a president.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then Trump should be taking over as long as he doesn't get assassinated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should voting be mandatory? What do you think?
Should voting be mandatory? Hmm. So obviously he just gave the relevant seats towards this recent election, just passed. Should voting be mandatory? My initial gut reaction is no, voting shouldn't be mandatory. Um, which is interesting because do I think everybody should vote? Yes. And given a democracy, the government, should be representative of the people. And in that, you would like to incorporate as many opinions, as possible so you can most accurately represent the whole. But I think you putting the onus on the people, the individual voter. I mean, if we're there's an age to vote. I think for multiple reasons. And at that age that is set on to vote, you are now you should be old enough to make the decision, formulate your opinion, and go and vote as a voter.
What do you think the age should be?
What I think the age should be, I don't know. I think you'd have to take education into a standpoint. You have to take maturity, which is like a nebulous concept. Like where in science does it say like at this age,
I mean, yeah,
you're mature enough. They say like a man's brain isn't fully developed. So I think like mid 20s or late 20s or something. So What age? I think. Yeah, I don't know. Was it now 16, 18?
18.
18?
I mean, yeah,
I think 18. I'll go with that.
that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, 18. I have no issues with 18. Um, but yeah, I think giving that right to vote, right? It's not demanded, but you have the right to vote is good enough. And I think it's important that you acknowledge if you forego your right to vote, you are deferring your ability to give your input on who governs you, state, local, nationally. You know what comes with that.
Mm.
If you don't have the vote, you're saying, hey, I'm choosing not to put my input in, whether that's you believe both candidates are inept or you're not a fan. So you're going to be like, hey, I'm not going to vote. Or they're maybe somehow you like both so good, or you're truly
Mm.
in the middle when it comes to leaning left or right. And you're like, I can't choose one, so I'm not going to vote. I think you should have the right. I don't think you should be forced.
Yeah, no, I agree because like I think I mean, you should vote, but
Yeah.
if you're required to vote, kind of goes against the ideals of the United States as a whole, as being a
That's a very good way
free
to put it.
state. Um, but I don't know. I mean, should it be mandatory to vote, even if it made it so that you have to vote? I wouldn't be too opposed to the idea, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where, kind of going off the topic, but here's where I don't agree with.
Okay.
Right. So we have, I mean, obviously within this current, political, I mean, the election that just happened, 2024 November, the big topic was immigration as a whole, right? And more in particular, illegal immigration, but with the legal side of people that actually wait to come into the country through the proper, structured, is it the best? No, it's not the best, but legal structure to come into the country. And they have to take like a American aptitude test
Yep.
to, know the history and whatnot. I kind of want to see that implemented into like a mandatory, I guess, so it would be at the high school level, like a mandatory education, because
Right.
if they need to pass it to become an American citizen, I feel like
Okay.
a lot of the high schoolers, even young adults, even myself, right? Like if I take that exam, I feel like I'm not gonna know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as like being a citizen of a country to vote, it's just signing a paper, but like it's more symbolic than that, right?
Oh, much more.
So with that, I think a lot of people should have basic knowledge of how the country is, how the culture of the country is. And I think this generation, definitely my generation and below, um, are definitely, you know, at fault for that. We don't know as much as we should know, I think. And then we're just voting off of what we see on TikTok. I say, oh, this candidate said this on this scandal that the TikToker has no credentials or credibility, and we're kind of believing into that. I see that a lot these days. So, yeah, going back to, I think everyone should vote. They don't have to vote, but just really thinking about it would be better if the citizen that votes does have more background knowledge and overall everything, right? Not just from traditional media, not just from social media, but actually looking stuff up. And that's going to be hard because people's lives are busy, obviously.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think we tend to agree on a lot of things. Certainly not everything though, which is good. But I think I strongly agree with everything you just said. So with that, do you think there should be some? Well, let me back up from like the naturalization test, right? Or from like coming to the
mhm.
country, like you said, you have to pass um X, Y, and Z, or you have to pass the test. I've heard questions from that test, and I agree with you. I think the American citizens should also, at some age or whatever, they be
Yeah.
embedded in the education system, should definitely be held, to that same standard. Because it's kind of embarrassing if we're giving a test for someone to be like, hey, you have to meet these requirements to be deemed an American citizen, and like our American citizens also can't meet that requirement. So do you think that? So you said you think it should be like in the education system somehow. Is that what you're saying?
I think it'll be good to have. Like a lot of topics that we talk about, it should be like finance, personal finance is a big one.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
should be incorporated more into the
sure,
public education system.
for sure.
I think it's overall better for the
Yeah.
citizens. And
Um, okay. I'm trying to think kind of on that line if there was like a government class that kind of teaches more
no,
like
I mean,
there's history stuff, but like what if there's a class that teaches like what the I mean, history of the like Republican Party, Democrat,
No, yeah,
what they stand for, so
I
you can get
took
more educated on.
I took AP Gov, but then like let's be real, like it was one class in high school. And you take the test and you're over it. You don't really remember, right?
Yeah, right.
But then AP Gov, like a lot of people, they don't. It's not a required class. I chose to
So AP,
take
you
it.
have to like test in it.
Right.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it's not part of like
the normal
high
curriculum.
high school. Like they have to, their standardized test. I think it should be part of that.
Got you. Yeah, this goes. I mean, definitely getting off topic now, but if we had a bucket of like topics we think should be added to school, I think this goes in there with the taxes.
Yeah.
Like you said, personal
Personal
finance, government. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Here. I think we're gonna disagree on it. That's what I want to ask related to the voting thing. And it was a hot topic. I don't hear people talking about it too much after the election, I guess. Should voter ID or identification be required to vote?
Should voter identification be required to vote? I would say yeah. I'm trying to think of the population that doesn't have. Yeah.
Okay.
If you have to.
No, I thought you were gonna say no.
No.
But a lot of people are saying no because it's racist to require voter ID.
And that's why I was trying to think on what demographic is.
I think the argument is if you're in the lower class,
right.
The argument goes, and I could be off on the argument, but something along the lines of, oh, you can't afford to go get an ID, basically.
So right. So when this brings us into a good point. I'm trying to think of when you say should people be required to vote. Right. I guess even beyond that, like what are the barriers to voting?
Okay, sure.
And so, which gets us kind of like on this topic, what are the barriers to getting the ID? Because I think the barriers to voting should be minimized. Like it shouldn't be mandatory. But again, like we said, I think everyone should vote. But we have to be careful on who we prevent from voting. But what are the costs that go? I mean, obviously you have to have transportation to get there. I can't remember. Like, is there?
I mean, you can do a lot of mail-in ballots now.
You can do mail-in ballots,
right?
Which is that? There's no ID. Well, yeah, I don't know what that process.
I think there's some kind of identification process, right? No, but like I want to say in California, like you could walk into a voting like ballot place, and you just go vote. Like there's no like, let me see your driver license. Let me verify your address. There's nothing, and that I think is a little too extreme on the flawed side, because I mean, just thinking about it, right? I could go vote 10 times if
I was gonna say, yeah.
I could have my family from Japan come over for the week and be like, hey, we should go vote.
I agree.
They don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
They're not even a U.S. citizen.
Not contributing and
Okay. So I think there's not. I think that's pretty clear cut, but a lot of people do disagree, which is, to me, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating
because you need a license to do everything.
And so, right, that's what I was comparing. I was like, what other things do you
alcohol?
License? Yeah, if you need
gun
to buy and get in a club, I think
to drive
you need
to work.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested in hearing like some of the opposing thoughts to that. But yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Because like you said, there's so many other things embedded in society that require a license.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
All right. I think
my question.
We're good to put the nail in the coffin for the voting.
All right. All right. B. Should we prosecute someone who steals food during a crisis?
Man, I mean, the crisis portion is very vague.
It is.
I'm thinking like if, what was the hurricane that hit Florida and
Sandy, the most recent one, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but hurricane, whatever.
Sure. So some kind of natural disaster. That's how I'm thinking about it. To put a definition to the question, if a natural disaster hits, and obviously there's going to be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people that's going to be in a very tough situation, and then the question is, if you steal in that circumstance to, let's say, to feed your family, to drink water, should that be penalized? Man, I would say yes. Because if you don't draw a line, where does the line right? Because I mean, we define crisis as natural disaster. That's objective, but in a crisis, that word that's subjective. You could be living fine. I could be in a crisis.
True.
And then go commit a crime, and
True.
I'm good because
Ooh.
right. That's so that
Well said.
the other side doesn't really align. You can't really put a line to it.
Mhm.
So I don't. But maybe they should be penalized, but maybe obviously a judge is going to determine how harsh that
Mhm.
penalty is going to be.
Mhm.
And I would assume, giving those circumstances with the definition for this example, I would say the judge would still penalize the thief, but
Yeah.
in a favorable way.
Okay.
I would think.
Okay. So it's kind of a hybrid answer, like, so yeah, the answer you're saying, should we prosecute someone that steals food during a crisis? The answer is yes, but like you said, there can be, maybe we can modify it in a way to account for the fact that it is a crisis.
Yeah, because you're also hurting. I mean, again, this is so vague. So let's say you're stealing water from another family that's also in a crisis.
Mhm.
It sounds like when you tell your side of the story, it feels justified. Like, hey, I just wanted to feed food for my, for my little baby.
Right.
Sure, it sounds good. But then maybe you took food away from their baby. We don't know that side of the story.
Mhm.
And there's too many nuances with, should there be crime or like, I'm usually not in favor of, I guess, crime be lightly taken.
Okay. Okay.
Because they're trying to decriminalize a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
I agree with some. I don't agree with all. Like for example, the drug topic, right?
Mhm.
Like, should I mean, like, marijuana is getting legalized in a lot of majority of the states now, but should someone go to jail for smoking weed? Like, no, I don't think so. That's very ineffective. I don't think it gets the point across.
Yeah. I think a harder question is for the people that have been convicted for,
Right, yeah.
like, retroactively, that are already,
Yeah.
charged for that. Like, now what do you do with them? Like, do you,
I mean, if
at the time it was illegal.
man,
Now it's not.
but that's also, it's not about the drug itself, but it's about the law.
Right. Abiding.
It's like
being
whatever
law-abiding.
the law is, it could be really dumb, it could be very clever, but the fact is you broke the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think they should get their charges dropped or anything like that.
Okay.
But man, that's a hard one.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go back to, let me restate the question. Should we prosecute someone who steals food during a crisis? I try my best not to give cop-out answers, but I could see it. I could see it going either way. My thing is, it needs to be consistent. Like, if we're prosecuting people,
Yeah, okay, I agree.
prosecute everybody fairly,
Yeah.
or whatever that looks like. If we're not, then we're not, which could get very dangerous. Because like you said, there's no line in the sand on that one.
But in the consistency topic, what about like a first time offender versus a 10th time offender?
Mhm.
Should the
Exactly. Yeah.
should the penalty be heavier on the 10th attempt of this said crime
Right.
versus the first one?
I'm trying to think, how would you even know it's the 10?
I mean, like, you could be convicted and
yeah.
and then
Okay. Yeah.
you just pay their little fine, and then
If I had to choose, so that was my entering argument. My gut is saying, like, whatever's done, it just has to be consistent, which kind of, I guess, is obvious. Like, that can go without being said. But again, I try to avoid the cop-out answer. So if I had to choose one, I think I would say, I think I'm big on like rules and laws as well. Like, prosecute them, because again, what is a crisis? So you use natural disaster, and while you were speaking, I was thinking, just trying to, like, a natural disaster can be deemed a crisis, but a crisis isn't necessarily a natural disaster. Like,
no, you're right.
like some people say, like, I'm a midlife crisis, which
Yep.
is literally somebody may have broke their leg and lost their job in the same week. Now they're emotionally in a state of crisis.
Yeah, I would say
So
that, yeah.
because that, they go do something crazy, and they're like, to them, that's a crisis. It's very subjective, but
Yeah.
like, they could like literally think they're in a crisis. who am I to say you're not in a crisis? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I
How
know.
does that compare to a national disaster? How does that compare to your house catches on fire because you left the stove on too long? And so now it's your fault and your house burns out and you have no house and you have nowhere to go. Like, that's a crisis.
Yep.
Or a national disaster, that's not even your fault. That's also a crisis. But so, right, there's so many tiers, and I don't think in trying to determine if somebody gets prosecuted or not, you can have different buckets for every single type of crisis and first time offender
Yeah.
and
It is
fifth
harder.
time.
I think
So
it
you have
is.
to either all or nothing. It has to be all or nothing.
But it is hard to be consistent because of that. And then I think that's
It
where,
is.
I mean, even if you say, hey, decriminalize a lot, I think the bigger issue in this is the consistency piece is not there in the judicial system that we have.
Yes. Mm.
There's a related question. I guess it's stemming off
Brain's
that.
still spinning on that one, kind of. Yeah.
Well, if you have something that you
All
think
right.
of, you can definitely answer in this question. So, would you hire someone who has made a mistake and is looking for a second chance?
Again.
So, natural disaster, and then they steal some food, they got their
Yeah.
criminal penalty,
Yeah.
and then they go look for a job.
This one for me is a bit easier. I would say yes.
Should they get a second? Okay, the question was should, right?
I thought you said would I.
Okay, would you? Okay, that's even better.
I guess
Okay.
it's the same. You like to think it'd be the same. I would, but that definitely depends on the offense. Would I hire someone that stole in the amidst of a crisis? Yeah. Would I sell somebody that committed a double homicide? Like, now the conversation is like, so if we're just saying that committed an offense, whatever, that it varies. But yes, I wouldn't disregard everybody that has a criminal background.
So you have an identical candidate, graduated from the same school, same GPA, same major, same extracurricular activities.
Taking the person that doesn't have the criminal record, because in that case I'm forced to pick a distinguishing factor, which is extremely rare. So like in that case, I'd be looking for something to be like, these are neck and neck. I need something to put. So
you could say, I mean, he's looking for a second chance. He might have a better work ethic they can get from a interview or resume.
Yeah. I mean, it might depend on the job too. If the job aligns with or puts them in an environment that may promote something that what their criminal offense was. Like let's say their offense was stealing, right? And they're working, the line of work that I'm going to have them doing is delivering boxing packages and loading a truck or something where they're isolated with no oversight and they're responsible for not the logistics, but like quantity, right? Like they have to put 80 of these items in a box and box it. And their offense was stealing, right? Okay. But if I'm hiring them for something that's like front facing or they're just working with clientele, there's nothing to be stolen. There's just, it's a computer job or it's working with people. Maybe I take that into effect. Like the environment they're in doesn't even lend to what their charge was. So again, nuanced, and I would take a lot of things in consideration. But to answer the question plainly, I wouldn't write somebody out. But if it was a neck and neck, similar candidates, again, if I had to, I would probably most likely lean to the candidate that did not have an offense. But then again, like I said, I would take what the line of work is in consideration. There's probably other things I'd take into consideration I'm not thinking of. But yeah, that's my flat answer. What about you?
I mean, I guess it will depend on a lot of stuff, but I'm thinking from like a exec level, like is this someone that I want in my company, and I have, let's say I had the authority to say yay or nay on this guy getting hired. I would probably lean towards nay, just because, I mean, even if let's go back to the stealing example, right? Let's say they come in, their past criminal offense was stealing. I feel like you're bringing in part of the culture from that person, even if they don't do it again.
Right.
Because from a resume, or like, all we know is resume, interview, and I guess in this situation, their criminal history.
Mhm.
From that, like, it doesn't tell me nothing about, like, are they going to be honest? And let's give them the benefit, right? Let's say that they will be honest, and but then they could be influencing people that um that would have never even considered doing it. They talk about it, and then maybe they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna do it, but, like, what's the big deal? Who cares? It's more likely than someone not having a criminal offense to, you know, lean that way to say, hey, it's okay, or something like that.
Mhm.
So it's for the overall culture, not necessarily just on the individual, but as an effect on the overall organization.
Okay.
I it's not 100% no, but it's like
Right.
better, like 95% probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think the optic plays a piece to it? So like kind of like you said, from affecting the culture, if that person, I don't know, is a habitual liar, which you can't get charged for that, but brings whatever to the culture, like you said, they're having conversations with these other people that might negatively influence the rest of your workforce. But what if, they're not, they committed a crime and they're on the good path. But
Yeah.
people that they work with know that they had this past, or now, like, do you think a company
Oh,
could get a
man.
reputation of, like, I don't know, they have I won't say like unscrupulous workers, but like these their workforce, or they're kind of,
It could
I
get
don't know.
it could get depicted in a, let's say that guy outworks everyone and gets promoted, and then the others, seeing this guy that has a poor criminal history get promoted, they may equate his success or her success to, not on the work ethic, but they could complain, be like, oh, hey, like, how is this guy getting promoted over me? I have a clean track record.
In- I think that'd be an easy conversation to have, because your track record for this company starts when you start working here. So as long as they've done good since they work here, I'm judging them off that. I don't think the previous should be even brought in that conversation. So
But then you said, if that would depend. If they had a homicide incident, let's say he gets into the company.
right. That would go into hiring, but like
Oh, you're
once
saying
I'm
once
hired,
once he gets hired, it's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But now I've made the decision where you're here, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
judge you based on
No,
that.
I
But prior
agree.
to getting here, I have to judge you on previous things. That's what a resume is, a judgment paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give me this paper on you so I can judge you on all these things and assess whether you're worthy. So yeah, I would pre-hire, taking into heavily consideration. Post-hire, I've made the decision.
Okay. No,
Now I ride with you. Like,
I think I lean towards that way too.
yeah. Oof. I'll go with this one. All right. Would you be in favor of editing the genes of human embryos?
Yes, with a caveat.
Didn't hear that.
I don't. I mean, to specify, like, I don't think human genotype should be edited to be like, hey, I don't want a 5'2" kid. I want someone that's 4'7". Like, I don't think that's I don't think that's something that should be edited or even attempted. Or maybe like for a research based, like, just to know that we could or couldn't.
Okay.
I don't think. I mean, I think that's harmful.
Okay.
But if it was to say, hey, we can edit this, this strand of
Where are you
DNA
going?
that causes, I don't know, sickle cell
Yep.
cancer.
Yep.
You just literally edit this out, and no, like, we will eradicate sickle cell. Yeah, I'm in favor of that. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Uh, but man,
Okay.
so I'm in favor of that, but I feel like if you legalize something, the line gets pushed and pushed
Yeah.
and pushed and pushed, and then obviously the underground stuff too, like behind the scenes,
I
like,
mean, that can happen regardless, though, whether it's legal or not. Like, the underground stuff is gonna happen.
no, but legality of something is gonna bring a lot of spotlight
True.
and a lot of money into the whole industry, I guess. And obviously, like, rich celebrities,
Oh,
just like a rich people, and they'd be like, hey,
you get an extra finger on this one.
yeah, like, slide 50K to someone and be like, hey, I just want this little gene edited, so my daughter could have blue eyes.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that happening as well. And
Okay.
I'll shoot. Dang, when I man.
Take your
Okay,
time.
so ethically, I guess maybe maybe not legalize anything because that might bring bad actors in the light for. I mean, let's be real, right? Like Russia, like China, North Korea, they're gonna be abusing stuff like that, right?
Right.
Not the people, but I'm saying as a
As a
government.
government.
So I don't even want to introduce. I mean, the technology is getting developed today, but I would be okay if that technology was never introduced to the world.
I was gonna say, I think I've heard, I haven't read anything substantiated on this topic or anything, but I heard like genetic editing is possible,
No, that's
or not even possible, but like has happened maybe.
no, it has happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
CRISPR. They might not be the leading company anymore, but like they're a public traded company
Mhm.
that literally edits genes.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So you brought up a good point, tying it back into the actual ethics of it. Um. Which I guess we should have defined. Like, what is ethical? I'm gonna let me get a textbook definition on that. Ethics, a system of moral principles, sure. The rules of conduct recognize and respect to a particular class of human actions or particular group. And then, yeah, moral principles of an individual. The branch of philosophy dealing with values relating to human conduct with respect to rightness and wrongness of certain actions and to the goodness and badness of motives and ends of such actions. So, kind of system of morals or principles. Okay. So I think I agree. I mean, I like where you were going with. It sounds like, if I could sum it up, what you originally said was you maybe personally, this could change, don't agree with like cosmetic genetic mutations.
Yeah,
Like if it's
cosmetic.
something that doesn't advance evolution, then like don't do it. Like modifying your height, modifying your eye color, hair color, that has no evolutionary advantage. It's not gonna, I don't think, better or worse in human society. Therefore, it's
That's okay.
cosmetic, it's preference.
Okay, sure.
Whereas eradicating sickle cell can have lasting generationally like genetic like benefits. You're just helping the
Then what about
But-
IQ though? Because
right.
I would throw in IQ or intelligence at the cosmetic side, but then from the
It can help.
definition, it could enhance human society.
Right. But then, so yeah, which gets crazy because then it's like, right, that could have positive effects, but it's who the class, and I mean, this doesn't necessarily mean don't do it. It's just this point is just for food for thought. The class of people that would be able to afford that genetic
Yeah.
mutation. So if you have all, let's say the rich people, or even something like that would probably be ultra rich people, whatever,
Yeah.
getting all of their children's intellectually modified, and then that's just going to create a gap. It's not saying if you're not
Dude.
modified you can't be
No, but
super intellectual.
but the playing field is
It
not
would-
random anymore.
exactly. It's not random.
Like it could be genetically modified.
Right.
And I mean, think about the wealth gap.
And that gets ethical. That breaches, I think, the
Yeah, like the more money you have, stronger chance of having I guess objectively better human as your
sure.
offspring.
right. Yeah. Right. It like that's kind of
That's
crazy
why I
to
don't.
think about.
That's why I don't even think we should have it in the first place.
Yes.
It-
And I was doing that circle back to, at face value it makes sense, but like ethically I think it's wrong, if not directly wrong, for these cascading effects of what it would create.
man,
It's kind of like, I want to say Facebook, but
it's also interesting because would you say genome editing is natural or unnatural?
I would say that's unnatural.
So natural would be something that over if you let the world happen,
Mhm.
it just naturally comes up, right?
Yep. Thank you everybody for listening. Hey, if you made it this far, please leave a review and email it to us at rebelwisdompodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to give you a little gift. We're going to give out gift cards. This is the last week we're doing it for the first person that got it to this far in this episode and leaves a review and sends it to us at rebelwisdompodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.
But then maybe the advanced species that comes along through evolution
Mhm.
in a given planet maybe it's inevitable that they will naturally get to the point where you edit DNA.
Is
Does that make
having robots run the planet, would that be natural?
I mean, depending on how you look at natural, it could be natural or unnatural, because we only know natural as what we've seen before, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the future is still natural.
Yeah,
That would say like any sort of technology is
Mhm.
unnatural if that's right.
Right.
Because I mean, everything
Right.
is still happening within our world, so it would be natural.
This goes back
That doesn't
to
make, you know what I mean?
this goes back to where do you draw the line, which is like a common theme in ethical conversations. Like it's always like where do you stop? Where do you draw the line? Because you're right. Like
Mm.
I feel like this breaches a conversation of like free will versus or not free will, but yeah, you make a good point. I think just circling back, I think gene editing is unnatural, kind of like our last topic. I don't some boxes, like opening Pandora's box, like once you open it and it's exposed, you can't put it back in.
Yes.
So some boxes just don't even need to be played with. They don't even need to be opened
See, that's
because once you unleash it, it's hard because I feel like for these super advanced topics such as this, it's like the leaders in these industries of these fields probably try to predict like, okay, if we dive into this field, is the looking at it from a statistical perspective, is the likelihood of this thing we're about to embark down this path, is it more likely to be good or bad? But it's like, who's qualified to judge that? Like, how do you can never really know? You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, if there's more good than bad statistic, like, we'll try it.
I
But
mean,
the bad could be so bad.
but think
And
about that would be like a similar argument to like nuclear power. It was
yes,
originally developed to harm humans, right? But then we know if used properly, it's one of
Was it?
the
Or was it like a sustainable or
no atomic bomb, nuclear.
that's
Yeah,
how
yeah.
that was like the
Yeah.
catalyst of nuclear power? Okay. I didn't know.
And have you watched Oppenheimer?
I haven't, dude.
Oh, dude, you gotta watch
Awesome.
you gotta watch
Hey, you seen a movie I haven't seen?
Dude, come on.
God, I'm
I'm
slipping.
a movie fanatic.
All right, cap.
But yeah, look at nuclear power. It can harm literally hundreds of thousands of millions of people,
Yes.
even through an accident or an intended use.
Right.
But it is I mean, for what we know today,
Yeah, right.
most efficient energy source there is.
Period.
Right? We were both in the Navy, and then our nuclear, aircraft carriers their propulsion is from nuclear power. Right? If controlled properly, there's
really
no
good, yeah.
there's no nuclear waste or radiation going into,
That's a key phrase. If controlled properly,
Yeah,
you can put that on every one of these. So, yeah.
But then you look at the other side. I mean, we also have thousands of missiles, nuclear warhead missiles that can wipe out a country
Countries.
in 20 seconds. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but nuclear. Oh man, shoot. 'Cause I was going
Rabbit
to
hole.
say nuclear power is I can't just go make nuclear power.
Right.
Me personally,
Right.
right? It would have to be done
Under a
more at
controlled
a
environment
company,
of-
like
yeah.
bigger scale level, whereas CRISPR or gene editing, going back to gene editing from what we're on, like I feel like some smart, I don't know, chemist,
Yeah,
biologist,
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
scientist, they could mess up some stuff, do some janky work in his laboratory in the basement, and then make crazy stuff happen. I think that's more. I'm not saying that you can't do that either way, but it's more likely to happen.
Right,
I feel like, and I mean, I'm not usually a fan of government controlling everything, but this might be one of the things that I would want government control as soon as possible, because if it gets out of hand, like,
yeah, and this topic, modifying genes directly correlates to the advancement of society, like actual humans. Whereas, should someone be prosecuted in a crisis, it's like that doesn't have direct effects on like humanity as we know it. Whereas like editing genes, good. If that becomes very prevalent and very accessible, and you look 2 generations removed from us, like people start
Dude,
doing it all the time. Like that will have direct and lasting effects that could alter the course of what we thought human existence would be.
think of a very dark application on this, right? Like you could
Super soldiers.
suppress the emotion on someone, make them bigger, make them last longer endurance wise, and they can just be my full-time house cleaner without. It sounds
But
bad.
we're going somewhere way different with that.
It sounds bad, right?
Yeah.
But then what if you cut out their emotions? Like they don't care. As long as they're fed, they'll do whatever. It doesn't really bother them. But
You got
now,
robots for that.
huh?
You got robots for that. But that wouldn't necessarily stop people from doing it.
Yeah.
So, like to your point, yeah.
That could get to a very dark place.
Right. Okay. So what if you brought some of our like national enemies into this, like the Russian, China, whatever. What if some of these other countries started doing it, right?
Oh,
And now
God.
it's like, hey, they're doing it, and I don't even want they're using it for applications such as sure, war and I don't know whatever else, and it's having like economical effects, and now based on them doing it, it's affecting the United States. And I guess I'm not asking you what would you do, but just could you see the United States being pressured into one of these adaptations just to keep up and like to protect our country from a
I mean,
defensive standpoint, maybe, or just like maybe economical?
to be honest, I feel like they're already working on this in the background that we don't know about. Like in the dark top level.
Yeah. Because I feel like everything becomes
Or
a
top
race.
secret level.
Right. It was like
Well,
the space race, now like the AI race. Like it's always
oh man.
major advancement, and then it's like, okay, who can perfect it first? So could this be like that next race to, I don't know, just something.
Dude, that would be very scary.
Yes.
But I do think, to fully 100% accuracy gene editing, I think that's gonna come in much
Our
later.
lifetime?
100%, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I don't either.
But then with, they say the AI supercomputer, which is supposed to be smarter than humans, is projected for 2050, which is in our lifetime.
Yes.
And then what if that gets compounded to the AI knowing how to do gene editing? That could speed up. Yeah, man. That's gonna.
I was also gonna ask you, because this came up in another podcast. When we start seeing the implementation of technology integrated into humans, so chips and brains, advanced prosthetics. I said like robotic joints, I think, in the other, which I don't even know if that's a thing, but just as a hypothetical, is that not the same as?
But that's not that much harm,
editing
though.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's what I'm just.
It's only positives, I would think, right? A robotic
you can put
joints.
chips in people's brains and maybe also suppress their thoughts like that, or control
Okay, maybe
synapses or
chips.
thought.
Chips and brain was maybe it might have been an outlier from the list that you gave.
Okay.
Because like, if someone lost their legs and they have like, fake legs,
Yeah,
I think that's beneficial to them. It's not gonna do any harm. Like, oh, that guy. We saw a couple people in the marathon that had
Yep.
like they're gonna run faster than me.
Right. On a much serious, so right. I was gonna say a much less serious level. Like, are those people in sports? And now it's altering the nature of the sport because these people don't fatigue. This thing, you know what I mean? It's just so many cascading. Yeah, I don't know how the games, but I'm just like, if we draw the line for like gene editing, I think we said like, shouldn't happen. Don't think we should be able to modify genes. But I think in one of our other episodes, we were like, I don't think we took as strong of a stance on a no against having these maybe technological advancements to human bodies. But now I feel like if we say no to gene editing, we also have to say no to that. That one is a little bit more easy to draw the line, I think. I will say that. I think it's like prosthetics, advanced prosthetics and stuff. You'll be like you say, chips and brain. I don't know what else exists out there, what is being developed, but I think it's a little bit easier to draw the line with technological advancements to humans, vice gene editing. But I feel like they're kind of similar.
Have you seen the video of this guy playing video games controlled by his brain through the chip? Have you seen a video?
No.
I believe he's playing Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is just like a
Okay.
first person shooter.
Shooter, okay.
But the entire they programmed it to where literally no controllers, no hand
Was it
movements.
attached on
Yeah, it was
externally, or was it like embedded?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
It said it was from a chip that his brain activity is literally, transmitting data to this chip, and that chip is communicating with the game
Yeah.
to control it. It's pretty fascinating
Oh, yeah.
because like
Yeah, it's insane.
there's no like you look at the gameplay and it's not awkward.
Right.
He just runs and turns a corner regularly.
Probably so
But
much smoother.
when he shoots to kill the enemy in the game, it's like you know what aimbot is, right?
It like auto track,
Yes.
like instant.
You look at the guy
Yeah.
they want to shoot at, and it's shooting at him, and then literally, soon as a player recognizes that he's dead, you just go to the next person. It's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's in the early stages. We'll see crazy advancements in that in our
And
lifetime.
that's a cosmetic, you know what I mean? Like for video game.
Yeah.
No advantageous. But I mean, now what if people are controlling weapons, like actual weapons, right?
Yep.
I don't. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Jesus.
Okay. Are you obligated to give all your children equal shares of your estate?
No.
Yeah, I think in the ethical, I feel like ethics wouldn't cover
Yeah.
estate.
It's good to keep grounding on the fact that this is an ethical conversation, because I think I am straying outside of like from a purely ethical standpoint. Even ethical, I think I can give a fair answer, but again, is it ethical? So right, I'll just speak to what I'm thinking.
Wait, hold on. You said fair, right? In this conversation, you said fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, you said fair versus ethical will be different. Is that what you were trying to get at?
Yes.
Where does the judgment of your fairness come from, though? Would it be if let's say first daughter or son is a multimillionaire, second one's broke, would it be fair to give them equal shares? That's like the equity versus
there's equity versus equal versus fair, and I can't remember what delineated all three. Would it be fair? I think it would be.
I think anything will be fair. Give money or not, that's fair. It was whoever had the estates, that's their choice.
Right.
That dictates fair.
Yeah, in this one, there's no obligation. So, I guess this is a hard one to assess fairness. You make a good point though. What drives your calculation of fair? Like, is it?
It has to come from some kind of ethical, like moral, something that you have inside you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Go ahead.
I don't. Yeah, I want to answer your question, but to answer that question, I guess I don't think you have to give. I don't think you're owed. I don't think the children in this case are owed anything just from being born. Like you're owed like your natural rights, but like in the sense of inheriting property, even if let's say I had two kids and I had I don't know if they're property, but assets to give, unless I gave neither one of them anything and I donated it all, that might suck for them, but like I'd be within my rights. I think, and I don't even necessarily think that'd be unethical. It's not bad. I think ethics is it's said in the definition I read there was an element of like goodness or it's not bad that I did. Like, what if I donated all my assets to a good cause? It just wasn't my kids.
But
that doesn't mean I love
feel
my
like
kids any less. That doesn't mean.
Okay, yeah. From utilitarian standpoint, it is better to donate to a nonprofit or a donation of some sort because they have the more manpower and the systems and the process to figure out, hey, we can. I mean, everyone's seen it's like, hey, give $1 and feed like 10 people in Africa or something like that, right? Like they will have more good from your money going to the public and them deciding on the experts deciding on where it goes, vice giving to children where, I mean, it could be for a good cause, but then I would argue majority of the case it's probably not going to be for a good cause
I wouldn't even say that, but I do think giving to a charity,
or less of a good cause.
yes, less of a good cause, because I think the charity is the most equitable choice. If I'm using that, trying to be between equal, fair, and equitable, the most equitable choice.
Yeah,
and you can make an argument that's ethical, like, right? So yeah, I don't think, now going back, right, if you had to, but now if you choose one kid over the other, that's certainly not equal. Fair, yeah, I get it. It goes off what do you do with fair?
Fair is also
If you take a transactional approach, you could be like, if you're elderly, which one of my kids, the kid that helped me the most when I needed it, that's what I'm gonna get, and that's fair based off your system of judgment, which you said, this kid helps me 80% of the time, and this kid, I live on the East Coast, they live in Cali, they can't help me that much. They come out 3 times a year, they help when they can, but this kid who lives closer to me, they come weekly. I'm gonna give them 80% of my assets. That's fair.
Yeah, from the owner standpoint, yeah.
Right? That is it ethical?
I don't think there's like a bad case in this scenario on the
I don't think that's unethical either. Yeah.
I
think it becomes unethical when it's like, are you your moral, if there's some malice in it, if you're maybe bribing a kid to do something, or like, hey, I'm going to give you these assets if you blah blah blah, blah
psych,
or something, then maybe we're breaching the ethics of it. But I think there's multiple ways you can distribute that and it be ethical.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any.
No, I mean, I would just imagine how pissed that sibling that didn't get their fair share,
right?
But I don't think it's, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think their life's gonna change, to be honest. Like, they think they're gonna inherit millions and just be rich forever, and I don't think that's the case. I think if you're broke, even if you get $1 million, you might be rich for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think they're gonna just go back to the exact position where they're at. So I don't think
one mindset.
It would be nice to have, but honestly, it's not a big deal if you don't get it or not.
Yeah, I think that last statement, I think most people would agree with it being a big deal or not. But I see where you're going with it. It's like the people that hit the lottery that don't know what to do with it, that it lasts for a year or two, and they're in very similar situations than they were in than prior to hitting the lottery, which is ludicrous to me. But that's fat. That's what, like, I guess statistically, like, that's what happens more often than not. So
yeah.
All right. Oh, we're here. All right.
That's probably a good question to close it off.
Yes. What are the steps to recovery from an ethics mishap? This is such a abstract question, but what are the steps to recovery?
But that's from
an ethics mishap.
How the question is phrased kind of assumes that you can recover from, right?
Definitely.
Isn't there some, like, in a biblical or religious sense, is there some sins that's like not forgiven by any circumstance? Like, if you do this, no matter what they say,
you're asking the wrong guy.
I think it's called like the unforgivable sins or something like that.
But is that like in a literal sense or like just a colloquial, like, because when they say like God forgives all sins, I think.
But I mean, but you see what I'm trying to get at, right? Like, for the first example, like, if someone stole something, you think they can recover ethically? Yeah, I think so. But if, like, for example, if you picked some religion and decided to kill 5 million people of those religion because you thought they were bad, like, with that, I don't think there's any recovery steps to do that. To my personal opinion, right? Like, there's too much risk in that person trying to do something similar. If you've, like, So obviously someone that does that is like pretty messed up in the head.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
So there's at that point, it's just like we have a bad batch of humans that wasn't maybe raised properly, whatnot. We just gonna kind of cut it.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't even have to be raised, but like you say, I think it at some point something about this individual is, I mean, most likely like psychologically not right.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I feel like the question implies like other steps, like there's a and like what are the steps to recovery?
WikiHow.
Ethic, yeah, like, from an ethics mishap. I don't know that I'm qualified to say like deem what first this, then if you do this, and then finally, but do I think you can? Like you said, the question implies that, hey, yeah, I certainly think you can, which I'm just reiterating what she said. But I'm trying to think like what I think we need to give an example to specifically say like what would that look like, right? Like what would
I mean, it's just like any other problem that you have. I feel like it'll be like first is self-actualization or realization. Like, oh, like I messed up.
admitting, yep,
That's like the first step. Because then a lot of people can't even do that. They're like, oh, it's not my fault. They're like, how is
Yeah.
that? Like, come on, you know? And I mean, the ideal scenario would be if the crime or ethic mishap in the situation isn't big enough, which is arbitrary. Just don't do it again. Like, I mean, that would be a simple case, and
yeah,
I'll be fine with that. But then that might cover 70% of all ethical mishaps, right?
yeah.
But then what about the other 30%? But what about the other 70% that they realize it, but they kind of keep doing it again from time to time?
That's not.
So
Yeah, I think your ability to recover degrade. Like if you're a repeat offender, do I think you're capable of recovering from ethics mishap? Yeah, but your likelihood is less and less. And also, whether it's the 70% or 30% that you made up and you reference, I think there's some action that needs to be involved. Because a lot of things like you do
Yeah.
something wrong, and then it's like, okay, admitting, right? I think to self and or publicly or whatever entity you wronged. Hey, I did something wrong. Let's say I steal from you. This is a very low level incident example. I steal from you. Me recognizing like, all right, dude, I stole that, right, to myself. Then coming to you and be like, hey, I stole that. I think that's an element. Then returning the item, buying a new item, right? There's some element of action. And again, this probably you can't do, right? You kill somebody, you can't bring them back.
yeah.
Maybe you do something for that family, or I mean, serve your time. That's an action. Like you turn yourself in. That's an
Yeah,
action. There to a lot of these, I think there is an action associated with it. But certainly in the spirit of having steps, it's like you said, self-realization. Maybe it's a 2-step, and then correction or retribution might not be the right word, but yeah, some type of repayment for whatever you've done. I think in the biblical sense, the word is atonement. You atone for your sins. That's like whether that's talking to God or just trying to correct whatever the sin was.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay, I think a lot of people will agree with you, and I do too. Because I mean, we all like it's cliche, but everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And I
But
think the
they're not
ability
always
to
ethical mistakes, though. That's the difference. Like,
okay, yeah,
you
right.
do it from your morals. I can be running down the sidewalk super fast, trying to in a hurry and bump a grandma and she falls down, maybe breaks her hip. But like, that's not an ethical mistake.
Yeah, that's an
After
accident.
that stuff, I can apologize.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
admit I did. I can help her up. I can, if I'm super nice.
You watched The
Different
Boys,
medical
right?
bills, I don't. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. The first episode.
Ethics out the window in that show. Zero ethics. But I don't even remember the first episode. I just remember.
No, where A-Train like
Ran to the girl.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like, oh my bad.
Spoiler free. But like in that sense, especially he had working for Vaughtons, like he had the ability to help that family. Like he could have done something, but besides my bad, like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And with a level of sincerity, because he wasn't even really serious like about it.
Man.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. Is
That's
there
a
like
one.
I want to know if there's like some prominent, ethics, morals figure that kind of outline. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it gets tied down so deeply into religion with that,
Right.
with forgiving, you're overcoming, recovering from your ethical mistakes.
But this is
'Cause
not. This definitely exists outside religion.
yeah,
A
no,
lot of
you're
people
right.
live, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of ethics are covered into religion,
Mm.
whereas, because like a lot of people get confused, a lot of people confuse ethics and laws,
Right.
because there's a lot of stuff that's not ethically wrong, like but then by the law it
It's
says
wrong.
that it's wrong.
Great distinction.
So, man,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most ambiguous one.
Right. Right. Like what's the? It's hard to delineate the objective rights, and like this is objectively right. It's yeah. It's a nuance and some like ambiguity to it. But that's cool to talk about. Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, admit your mistakes and try to repay it
Yep.
in the best way that makes sense for you.
Yep.
I don't think anyone. I mean, no, I don't want to say anyone, but like I don't think it's a wrong answer to say.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so.
definitely not. Yeah. That's not the best answer. It's certainly a great start.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's it says, should vaping be banned? Which is a very
Ours it's in the ethical.
yeah,
Doesn't seem like a very ethical question, but
very important topic
Sure.
for today's day and age.
for you guys to have this off camera. No, so like I said, we took a different twist on this. Again, these were derived from the Little Book of Big Ethical Questions by Susan Leotold. And I think these are great things for anybody to think about. Different age groups, no matter where. There's no point where you get in life where you're like, you know what, I'm beyond ethics, or I'm
Yeah.
not ethical. I don't care where you are. Ethics, I think, will always apply. And these are great things to talk about, think about, and hopefully you have someone in your life you can discuss them with. If
Mhm.
not, come join us here at Rebel Wisdom Podcast.
Yeah.
We love to have them. We love to hear the feedback. So yeah, I mean, with that being said, again, hope you got something from it. Hope you got something to think about. And thank you for joining us. We never take that for granted. And we'll catch you next week.